English and Media Studies and Video Production for a lot of years at Oyster River High School. The sponsors of, this is the 5th in the series of the Backyard Farming Initiative for this year. It is co-sponsored by the Lee Agricultural Commission and the Lee Public Library. And the folks who serve on the committee that put this program together, Donna Lee Woods is in the back. Donna, you want to give a little? She's from the Ag Commission. My wife, Annie Gazowski, is from the library, chair of the trustees of the library. Chuck Cox is right back there. Chuck is on the Ag Commission. He's one of our presenters tonight. Would like to thank the Grange, you know, the nicest venue for this type of thing in the area. And in particular, Jimmy Brady, who's kind of hung with us throughout. And no fire tonight. So we're,
no, I was a relief.
I guess we're good. It must be time to plant, okay? We don't have a fire in the Grange Hall, so you can safe to plant, but Dwight says watch out for that frost coming. So, and Scott and Cindy Jupp Jones are here tonight. Scott Jones and Cindy Jupp Jones, okay? I got it. That's better. That's a little bit better, okay? Okay. Are here tonight. They've been videotaping for several years now. This series from the last 3 years is on DVD. The first 2 years are here tonight. You can borrow it from our library at any time. If you're interested in purchasing, we're interested in finding out whether you're interested in purchasing. So there's a lot of good information here. There are all kinds of books in our library about these things. This is a farming community, and we have a good collection of books, and obviously we have living resources, so, and that's what this is all about tonight. I'd like to thank Tina Sawtell and Donna Lee for bringing some goodies for us for tonight afterwards. And Tina brought her blueberry rhubarb cake again. It's just bang up stuff. So just hold your horses, okay, until afterwards, and you'll get a taste of that. And there's some.
Leave some for a husband to take home.
He looks fairly well fed to me. I mean, really, he's got a Florida tan too. I don't know how he gets that, you know. And anyway, thanks to those folks for coming and helping out tonight. A couple more pieces of paperwork are out for you tonight. One is a list of the library collection, and it's over there. And a more important, well, an equally important piece is a survey that we'd like to ask you to complete, and if you would, to let us know what your thoughts are in this series and give us a little guidance going into next year. Yes, we will be back next year. We'll help you get through another New England winter and hope we can make it into spring. So, and just another quick reminder, and I'll try to remind you at the end, this is the last of this series, but our farmers market begins on May 28th, and it is every Thursday from 3 to 6 at the old fire station at the corner of Recycling Road. So it's a nice little venue, and a lot of these folks vend there, come out and support them and engage in some social, casual conversation while you buy some local produce. Our format tonight, even though we started a little late, we're going to hold to it. We have two presenters tonight, Woolmark Farm and Tuckaway Farm. They will formally present for 15 or 20 minutes or so. And then you hold your questions. There'll be a question and answer period right after that where you can ask some questions. And then after they're done presenting, we'll have a question and answers follow-up on everything before we break for the evening and just gather informally. Our first presenter tonight is Dwight Barney from Woolmark Farm. Dwight and Sally Barney have operated this farm
since 1971.
Since 1971. This is on Cartland Road. I'm assuming everybody knows where that is. This is one of the most beautiful farms in Lee, and we have a lot of beautiful farms in Lee. So I got the pronunciation right. This is about sheep, but it's really about family, and it's about a lot of things. Dwight was a professor at UNH for
37 years.
Yeah, and so you maintained this while you were doing that?
Yes.
Okay. This is his son-in-law, Eric Gibson. Eric works in the food service at UNH. having taught for enough time around here, he's a former student of mine, so it's always nice to see Eric. So I got the pronunciation correct. We're talking about Tunis and Border Leicester sheep. Dwight.
Thank you very much. It's a pleasure to be here tonight. I'd like to share with you some of our history on the Woolmark Farm. The farm is located on Cartland Road in Lee, and I think that's probably one of the best kept secrets of the town in terms of the road. It's in between 125 and 155. It's a dirt road. There's a large number of acres of conservation land on both sides of the road. And when we moved to Lee in '71, if we heard a car go by, we'd rush to the window and just to see who it was. Now on a weekend, it may be 400 to 500 cars. So there's been quite a change. It's a shortcut now for a lot of people. If we look at the farm, someone was just asking me how close the barn is to the road. I jokingly tell people when I give direction, I said, look for the farm that's in the road. The milk house, which is on the right-hand side of the barn, is within 2 feet of the gravel. And I actually think it's in the town right-of-way. But when that was designed, they used to stop and pick up milk, and it had to be close to the road, and so it's kind of unique. Now, if you were to try to build a building that close to the road today, you would be in deep trouble with the town. When we established Woolmark Farm, our goal was several things. One, we wanted to keep the land open. We wanted to raise some meat to supplement our freezer, to sell to people, and just to have the sheep for the kids, for myself. If I came home from work, I had a bad day, I could get down to the barn and work. There was no argument. They didn't give me a hard time. They didn't argue, etc. When we first started, it was in '71. The flock of sheep at the time was 60 head that was in that barn upstairs and downstairs with no running water the first winter. And when I lambed the ewes out carrying water morning and night from across the road got to be a very lengthy chore, and I said we will have water in the barn the following year. So we proceeded to do that, and what we set up was a program where we try to merchandise lambs, particularly for Easter. Your Greek Easter, the Italian, a lot of the ethnic groups have been the prime source of our sales. Right now, the Muslims are creeping in. The first and second generation Greek and Italians are now pretty well gone. And what we're seeing is that the third generation are now buying a leg, or buying a few chops from the store rather than buying a whole lamb. So you have to kind of work with the market as to what they want. When Sal and I were working with this, we found that it took a lot of time, and I'll reiterate what some of the past people have said, that you have to have the family cohesive. You have to have their support. I think I was fairly successful with the sheep because I had one whale of a wife that was there supporting me and doing the work. And I think with any business, for the wife to be successful, you've got to have a husband that's going to be there supporting her. And thank God we have some son-in-laws that are very, very supportive. Eric has done chores for us more than once when we were gone, because the animals have to be fed 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. You can't shut them off Friday night, turn them back on again on Monday. We also were very actively involved with 4-H. The Lee Hill 4-H Club was a club that my wife was involved with when she was in 4-H. And she has been a leader in the Lee Hill 4-H Club since 1972 or 73. And this farm is the third, actually it's the fourth generation working with sheep, because my dad was raised on sheep. I started in when I was 12 years old and paid my way through college with the sheep, and I wanted this to continue with my daughters. Eric's wife, Kristen, did very well with the sheep. She won a lot of prizes and just kind of made it very, very enjoyable. If we look at the breeds that we're running today, the red-faced one on the left is a Tunis, originated from Tunisia or North Africa. The Border Leicester, which was originally a white breed of sheep, which is more of a coarse wool breed. The unique thing, when I was a youngster growing up, if you had a black lamb born, you never bragged about it. You got rid of the black lamb as soon as possible because no one liked it. It was a black mark per se. Today, if you have black, you will crow and brag about it because a lot of your spinners and weavers enjoy using black fleeces. All the breeds of sheep will have a black gene, and the Border Leicester has cultivated that so that for the past 5 years we have had a 100% black lamb crop every single year, even though some of the dams might be out of white stock. The size might be out of white stock, and it's kind of a bragging point for us because we've been fortunate. Even though you can have black ewes and black rams, you may still have a percentage of white that will carry through because of the genetic base. If we look at the lambing percentage, this is my granddaughter, Kristen's and Eric's daughter. She's got a set of twin lambs out of that ewe that she is holding. This year we had 5 sets of triplets, which people think, well, you ought to have a lot of lambs. The more lambs you have, the more money you can make. When you have triplets or quads and the ewe has 2 milk spigots, you have some competition, and then you usually wind up having to supplement the feed. And when you're buying a milk replacer, it's very expensive, and you don't make much money when they have triplets or quads. Emily has done exceptionally well in the 4-H. One example at Eastern States where she was in the youth show and then the open show, she had a champion ewe, and this helps to promote the breed. It promotes her ability with the 4-H project, and as a result, she has been able to win some national trips. When we work with the sheep, we try to keep what we call best management practices, where we're doing what is in the best interest of the sheep, that is going to make it easier for us. We will not use growth hormones. We'll use the minimal amount of medication, only when the animal needs it. We don't look at the animal and say, well, gee, that looks like it might be a little off today. Let's give it a couple shots. I don't believe in that. If I'm selling lambs for Easter, when they're 30 to 50 pounds in weight, I will not give them any medication whatsoever. We'll merchandise them live. Then after I've gotten rid of everything that would go for meat, those animals that may stay in the flock as breeders, replacement stock, we may use medication if we have to. When we look at the feeding program, I'll just throw in a good point for Kent Feeds, which purchased Blue Seal. And we're also using Pool and Grain, which is a good product for us, and they have been a prime supporter of 4-H, because if we buy Pool and Grain, they have been donating 25 cents a bag to the 4-H club for every bag that the youngsters purchase, either pig, poultry or lamb feed, so it's a win-win, I think, for everyone. We are not pushing tremendously, but we do sell lambs in the fall if we have orders early enough that the lambs are processed in a federal plant, that the animal I'll deliver to the federal plant. The person can pick it up, or I will return the animal all cut, wrapped, and frozen to their specifications, and pick it up, and it's delivered to them the same day. If we look at some of the local shows like Stratham Fair, you'll see some of the 4-H's that are in our 4-H club. On the left, there are 2 individuals. On the right, we have 2 more, just to show you what the youngsters are doing at some of the fairs. Any of you been to Freiburg Fair? If you haven't, if you like agriculture, that's, to me, one of the best agricultural fairs in New England. Still very, very good. If you look at some of these pictures have a little age on them, but it shows a family working together. The little boy is Eric's son. He's 14. Emily is on the other side. She is 16. But they have been working with sheep. Especially Emily has been spending a great deal of time. She has done very well at the shows. Hunter, unfortunately, he has an allergy. He can get down in the barn, and I was having great expectations with him when he got a little bit older to help with the hay. He's allergic to the hay, he's allergic to the sheep. Everything that is at our place he's allergic to, but yet he can handle pigs and poultry, and he's not bothered. So it just works out that way. But I think a key point would be that when we look at the typical family-run operation, you have both the parents that are working together, you have the immediate family that are there to help. And this is what makes it so wonderful for us, and I think a lot of the farms in this town or community have the same situation. I can see several families right here where I know that they're on the 2nd or 3rd generation of kids that are working with the animals, and that's what makes it successful. And just in closing, if you look at this picture, it's taken from the house, just panoramic view showing the sheep in the field, showing that this is in a very rural area. That's why I call it the best kept secret, because we don't have very many houses on the road. We have production agriculture, and we hope that we can continue to keep it in operation. And people say, well, when are you going to retire? And I say, as long as I can crawl down to the barn, I will continue to have animals, because they're what keep me going. And in conclusion, if you like red meat or you like local, here's a good example of what you can find in the town. There are several farms with sheep, and you can name most any commodity, and you can find someone that's probably producing it in this community that you can either buy at the farm stand. When does that start in, Eric? 28th of this month will be the first time the farmers market will be in operation. Did you, by chance, pass those cards out? Okay. So if you have an interest in meat, or you just want to raise sheep, if you need help, there are plenty of people in the town that raise sheep that would be more than willing to help you. It made my life very successful, and I think you would also find the same situation where animals will keep you busy. If you look at what 4-H does for the youngsters, there is a very high correlation to 4-H's working with animals that stay out of trouble. They're too busy, they don't have time to get into trouble. And if you look at students that get into college, The admissions will also tell you 4-H's have a higher priority. They have a proven record. A 4-H'er that has a C average may get in sooner than someone who is non-4-H with an A average. Just food for thought. Are there any questions? Yes, ma'am.
I noticed that you are listing wool and you're listing fiber and roving and yarn.
Yes.
Who is doing the spinning? Who's spinning the yarn?
No one.
Well, then we're-
No, we have taken some of the good black fleeces and we will process it into yarn or woving and offer it for sale. We don't put a high priority on that,
Okay, all right.
but we have that available. And I have the philosophy I'd rather be able to move something out quickly, where if you process a lot of wool, you've got to have a minimum number of pounds to go out to be processed, and it may take you 6 months to a year to have your return back.
It's very time consuming.
It can be, and I do not have that patience.
Okay, thank you.
All right. Other questions?
Go ahead.
I was curious about when you say that you take it to one of the USDA slaughterhouses.
Yes.
Is that something that has that changed over time? Has it been like easier or harder or more expensive or less expensive? Like how has that changed over time with access to something close
All right.
by?
When we started in, we used custom facilities. That was very convenient. They did a good job, but with concerns with foodborne illnesses, new regulations came in, so we moved to more federal plants. Unfortunately, New Hampshire is lacking in facilities. Massachusetts, Maine, Vermont. I don't know what the answer is going to be, but it's much more difficult today. There are some places, federal plants, that you have to put your order in or your date a year and a half in advance. And many of us do not know when that animal is going to be ready. We still have a couple that you can get them processed when the animal is ready without more than 2-3 weeks, sometimes a month's notification. But otherwise, it's just luck of the draw. I think we've got a couple of producers in here that probably will agree with me. Eric, do you think it's easier now to have animals processed than it was 30 years ago?
30 years ago, I would say no, but in the last 10 years, yes. It's definitely easier in the last couple of years because now we have 4 slaughter plants where we only had 1 2 years ago.
But
In the
it's,
state?
That was expected.
and I think from a liability standpoint that more and more people are using the federally inspected plant, particularly if you're going to be selling meat. You can get around it somewhat if you sell a live animal. You can have it custom. I could sell you a live animal as part of the deal. It would be processed, but there's still some liability, and so more and more people are just going strictly with federal.
So does that mean you're sending them out of state sometimes or all the time, or
All-
are there places in New
I
Hampshire
have
you
not
usually go to?
had to do that. I've
Yeah.
always been able to send it within the state, thank goodness. Because you do have a transportation issue if you go out of state.
Other questions? When you were a child, how did you process animals back then?
When I was a youngster, we would take it to a local custom facility, and we'd deliver it. We'd probably stay right there where they would process it. We might bring the carcass home and cut it up and sell it, or we would wait for them to cut it up, and then we would wrap it and sell it. It wasn't the issue then that it is today.
Was there anybody local in this immediate area doing that? How close were they?
Oh, in this area, I don't know. This was in the Lakes region area where I grew up. So I can't speak for what.
Go very far to find somebody up there.
No, there were quite a few custom now. There used to be one in Dover that was custom. In Barrington, in Rochester, there were several custom, but I don't know. Pardon?
Rockingham County Complex, they had a slaughterhouse there too.
That was custom, and then federal, and then it was closed down. But I think custom were very plentiful for quite some time, but then they had state inspection that, in fact, when I was teaching at UNH, we had an abattoir management and a meats course that I taught, and we used to have students that would graduate from there and move right into state inspection.
You can do custom butchering yourself, can't you?
As long as I'm consuming it, yes.
Yeah, because you did one for Blaine Cox a few years back.
Yes.
As part of this program.
Yes.
Can you talk about that?
All right, what was this, 3 years ago? We had a demonstration. There was a request or a need for swine processing. And I was asked to be a part of that. So we just showed how you could process your own animal, putting the animal down in a humane manner, and then how you could process it with the least cost materials. And I think it was successful. We had half a dozen people that were very, very interested. And this is something that you could do yourself, but not everyone can put an animal down. That is a concern or an issue that some people have. You would have to find someone that could do that in a humane manner. But I think we're going to see more people that are going to go back to the land. They want to know where the food was raised, how it was raised, and they're willing to pay a little more money than what is available in the store.
Dwight, in terms of economics, in terms of profit margin, to the extent that you want to talk about this, how do you make money in this? Where do you make money, and how does that happen?
We don't make money. If I break even every year, I'm happy. Some years we make a few dollars, most years we lose money. We go to a lot of shows. We lose money by going to the shows because we may be at Freiburg or Eastern States for a week or 10 days at a time. And yes, you may make $200, $300, $400 in show premiums. But the cost of transporting them, you have to have a truck, you have to have a stock trailer, you either have to live in a hotel, motel, or you have a travel trailer, so there's a price on that. And you put everything together, and at the end of the year, very few people make their livelihood. I don't know of anyone that's making their livelihood with sheep. Other species, you can make some profit. But it depends upon how you operate. I look at the sheep from my standpoint that they paid my way through college. As I used to show at fairs all summer long, and I made good money. I was given the opportunity that any money that we made, I would get half the show winnings. And if you go to 16 or 18 fairs during the summer, you can earn a fair bit of money. But when I was a student, I was not paying $30,000, $40,000 a year. It was a whole lot less than that. I think my first year, my total cost was around $2,500. I think any species, you can make a profit, but how do you define a profit? Is it going to be $1? Is it going to be $100? Or is it going to be your livelihood? I don't think you'll make your livelihood from one animal enterprise. Do you know of anyone, Eric, that's making a livelihood with any farm animal other than dairy?
A meager one.
I mean, it's virtually impossible.
What you call a livelihood.
Yes.
Any other questions? Okay, we're going to shift gears now over to Tuckaway Farm. Thank you, Dwight. The slides that'll be on are just sort of a random section of slides, so we won't talk about them. That'll give you just a sense of what Tuckaway Farm looks like from different times of year and different places on the farm. Tuckaway Farm, we purchased the land back in 1973, and it was about 79 acres. We were looking for a homestead type of thing. We weren't, I was more into back to the land and doing craft work and whatnot, and not looking at sort of commercial farming. We were working at a school at that point, and we were working with yurts also at that point. I graduated from Cornell College of Agriculture, very interested in organic agriculture, which they were not teaching back in the 60s. And they are doing a much better job of covering organic concerns and whatnot now. In 1982, we moved to Tuckaway and built buildings there, and our 4 children have grown up at Tuckaway Farm. Doran is the oldest. Justin, who's graduated from Cornell, and he's working in wind power. And we have our daughter Annalisa, who and her husband, who have worked 5 years on the farm and have now moved to Maine. And then our youngest one, Brittany, is I think very influenced by the farm, but she went to Cornell, but she's making costumes now. So anyway, the Tuckaway Farm, I think it's been very important as a family, sort of a family homestead. We had a small farm, and I grew up in Plasto, and I think that influenced a lot of what we felt that the farm should be. Okay, over the last years since we've moved on the farm, we've actually been putting the original farm back together. We owned about a part of it. We've added some land, and with the help of the conservation easements and whatnot, we've added another farm to Tuckaway Farm, the Randall Farm. And I think that's the only reason we were able to add that farm and keep it in agriculture rather than housing and whatnot, was through selling the development rights, conservation easements, and farm easements on the land. My wife Laurel was very instrumental in that, and went on to help the rest of the town put easements on much of the other farmland in town, which I think has been very important. Over the first few years, we've put in a couple ponds. We've put in woods roads. We're a certified tree farm, and we've been certified organic for about 10 years. And there's still some questions on the certification. I won't get into that. The other things that, as a family, and working with the community, as Dwight was talking about, the importance of this community support and family support. We've hosted the Wentworth Hunt. We keep the hounds for the Wentworth Hunt, and they use our property and adjoining properties and others in the area. And we were also involved with the children with horses, and involved in Seacoast Polo, which again, another use of the farm and community. And we've also hosted a number of weddings for 3 of our children at the farm, and a few others. Not a business that we wanted to get in, we're wanting to get into, but we've certainly felt that the farm has been a real value in the family community and in the greater community. And a lot of people that have come by have certainly appreciate
the farm, what we're doing there. We're growing high bush blueberries, other small fruits, big asparagus bed, rhubarb. We've got some of the things we're selling in the Tuckaway Farm store over here, and Sarah can talk a little bit more about that. In the last few years, been getting more involved with the Chefs Collaborative and other chefs in the area that are interested in certain heirloom varieties, and they've got me started on growing a number of heirloom crops, and which has proved, I've been enjoying that very much, and it's another outlet and keeping some of our heritage going. And in the last few years, we've added, we were involved with the horses with the hunt and the polo, and I was feeling, well, we really should be using the horses for work on the land. And about 9 years ago, we did start to work with draft horses again, and so that adds another whole dimension to the farm. And I think I'll let Doran give a sense of what our directions are going as the next generation is coming on to probably take the formal lead on this.
Great. So as my father said, this has been a multi-generational farm, but I think the theme that I'm going to focus on is that we're seeing our farm more and more less as an isolated farm and more as part of a larger community, which includes the customers and a lot of other farms, because a lot of what we're trying to do with creating a local food and energy system and also expand the definition of what we're producing on the farm, including, as I mentioned, energy, but also a lot of environmental services, and finding ways on our farm to be able to make the community aware of the value of the agriculture. So a lot of what I've been involved with is focusing on improving the health of our soil, but also understanding how that, not just from a production practice, but looking at it from our watershed perspective and valuing that when we're looking at hundreds of millions of dollars of upgrading our septic systems and hundreds of millions of dollars for upgrading and reducing the nitrogen in the bay. Farms in general, oh, we got to start that again. So a lot of what we've been doing is looking at what it takes to build a really healthy soil and involve more people in the farm and understanding all those production practices and the value of agriculture beyond just what comes out as a commodity product. And so in that sense, we're really working with the customers and also with the other farmers to sort of expand, again, what we see as possible to produce locally, and then also thinking about what's produced beyond just the dietary aspects of it. The way that's expressing itself is in a lot of the diversity of production that we've been doing and reduced tillage trials and partnerships with the University Extension and conservation districts, and other organizations that I'm involved with, including Green Start, which was founded here in New Hampshire, and Farm Hack, which is now a global cooperative sharing farm technology. And so a lot of what we do beyond, as I mentioned, production is hosting workshops. So we may do several, maybe a dozen workshops in a year, and then also actively working with research projects that are ongoing with the University of New Hampshire, often with environmental monitoring and production practices. So as I mentioned, as we move forward, we have our farm, but then we're a collaboration as well. So our marketing, as you mentioned, has a lot of diversity, And we do produce a lot of the diversity on our farm ourselves, but a lot of what we're doing now is also because there's a limit to how much it's possible to manage as far as that complexity within our own family. So we've started to partner with a number of other enterprises on our farm producing with our land additional products. So, and it's not really revolutionary. Beekeepers have been doing this for a really long time. So we have two beekeepers who are on our farm, but Sarah's mother produces jam, and we have a birch syrup operation. We often, when my brother-in-law was there, he was doing the maple. And now we're partnering, Sarah's partnering with a friend for a bread CSA. So we're starting to be able to do the value-added production, taking it from the field all the way to a finished product and offering that to our customers. But it wouldn't be possible if we said this was just a family enterprise. So, and we're also partnering with other off-farm enterprises that some of which aren't produced entirely on our farm. When it comes to meat, they fill in when we don't have a regular supply. But we're also partnering with a small dairy for raw milk CSA. So we're a drop-off point for them, but it offers our customers more of a whole diet possibility. And we're likewise with the poultry. So as we go forward, I think a lot of what we're aiming to do is continue to expand those partnerships and also work towards improving tools to manage the complexity and again develop the data that's required to make those smaller enterprises with more value added, more direct connection to the customer, more profitable. So a lot of the tools through enterprises like FarmHack are to do just that. So if we're looking at bringing in grains, oil seeds, and the baked goods and the other value-added production, often that is scaled up to a large scale because of the cost of the infrastructure and also the complexity of gaining the skills to do that. So that's a large part of the role that I see our operation participating in, again, not in isolation, but as part of a larger network. So we're talking about, in FarmHack we talk about global knowledge with local production. So the more we can share that type of production technology, the more we can produce locally, that both improves the soil as well as creates more profitable enterprise by reducing inputs and having the farmer keep more of the final purchase price and making their customers aware of all the additional values besides, again, just the caloric values of what they're eating.
The slides kind of looped, and I at least saw a few that kind of piqued my interest, and I was kind of wondering what they were. But before,
let me see.
If we don't have questions,
let me grab a mouse and see.
I'd like to ask you about a couple of those slides.
Sure. Let me.
I think we do have some questions. Go ahead, while he's.
Doran, could you say again the name of this organization? Farm what?
What's that? FarmHack.
Hack?
Yeah, and I can bring it up here. For some reason, my mouse seems to be frozen on there, and that's been the issue from the beginning today. Let me see if we can get this to work.
Well, one of the things that Doran got involved with was biodiesel, thinking that we wanted to get away from the petroleum-based, and so we started growing sunflowers. And it wasn't too long before we figured that sunflower oil was worth a lot more as a food than it was for fuel. And so the focus shifted on that, and also got into looking at canola as others. And we've worked very much with John Hutton here in town, who gave, I think, one of the first presentations of just growing some of these oil crops. And again, the small grains that haven't been grown here, they're interested in seeing how those will work and how they'll work into an integrated system, not you know,
They don't work in isolation, right? Yeah. So a lot of that's certainly a lot of what we're finding is that you can't make just a grain production system work on its own. But if you have animals, you can lower the cost of your feed.
What are we looking at here?
that was the biodiesel processing trailer.
So yeah, that's the biodiesel processing trailer. So we take used vegetable oil and it makes its way around a number of chemical processing steps and filter steps, and we can process about 250 gallons of diesel in an afternoon.
Is that yours?
Yeah.
Did you guys build that?
Yes.
It runs on biodiesel.
It also runs on the fuel.
It better have a biodiesel.
And there's the vegetable oil being pressed. And part of again that the Farm Hack mission is to make all that knowledge open source, which means the opposite of patenting. So if you think about what Wikipedia is, it's a collaborative process of publishing knowledge. That's what we're doing with the technology that's being developed on the farm. So if you're interested in building that trailer, that's open source. That's open source. So you can get the full schematic, the full bill of materials, and instructions on how to use it at no cost. Yes.
Can you explain that, Jordan?
Meeting the president?
Oh.
Before you probably?
Yeah, it was just when he was campaigning here. So we were looking at talking about biofuels and local production. Yeah.
I think of local products that have a market having to do with animals and fruits and maybe leafy vegetables, that kind of thing. When I think about oilseeds or grain, it seems like those are often treated as commodity crops.
Right.
And I'm wondering about the economy, how that works here, given that we don't have the same, kinds of soils out in the Midwest.
Well, it's not about soils. We have much better soils and we have much better rain. What we don't have is the scale and the equipment that's scaled to it, and we also don't have a market that supported it. So that's where, as we mentioned, it works as an integrated system where you're not dependent on a grain elevator buying it at a commodity price. You're looking at what's the retail cost of purchasing the feed, what's the retail cost of that you can get for a pound of premium wheat berries, for example, or a finished culinary oil, or a loaf of bread. And so that's where it makes a big difference. If you're thinking about the retail market you go to Bob's Red Mill, it's $5 a pound at Durham Marketplace. If you're thinking about, and likewise with the oils, if you think about what people pay for maple syrup, you're in the same range, but it's possible to get 30 to 60 gallons an acre on the oil, and you've got essentially 1,100 pounds of 30% protein meal right there on site that you don't have to purchase, and that's often the more expensive part of your ration. But there's a lot to get there. It's not something you do overnight, and you're starting from scratch. And from the grains perspective, it's been around the Civil War, we had about 9,000 acres of grain in this area, mostly in the Mount Washington range. And that was prior to the invention of the sickle bar mower. The grain production, essentially, as soon as the West opened up and we became more industrialized here, most of that production left, and we missed all of the innovations in equipment and mechanization and efficiency, and the scale just bypassed us because it was simply easier. Even at that point, the production costs were higher, but the prices were also higher, and the markets were local. So not much has changed. But we now have access to equipment from the rest of the world where they figured it out. So a lot of what we're purchasing is coming from Italy and Germany, or we're studying is coming from Italy and Germany and Asia. And the costs aren't necessarily that great. What we're really lacking is an understanding and how we integrate that into our own production systems. So that's everything from dehulling and cleaning and storage as well as planting and harvesting. Planting and harvesting is really, we're coming to realize, is one of the easiest things that in that whole system.
That's interesting. You had some aerial shots of the farm. Did they have any scientific relationship? Were they part of a study?
Yes. So,
is there a way to dial something up?
Yeah, and I'm sorry, it looks like my keyboard's all frozen up and without restarting. Let me see if I can...
Well, that's okay if you can't get it, but I was just wondering, does it look like there was a relationship between the photography and some of the...
Yeah, so a lot of the research that I'm doing is also to lowering the cost of research, so that it's possible to gather more data on the production practices and what's working and what's not, so that we can be more scientific about measuring the complexity, especially when it comes to soil systems. So often soil health is expressed in plant health, which you can see because healthy plants, you can visually identify that. So the cost of aerial imagery has come down dramatically. I mean, you can see a lot in Google Earth, but the cost I mean, you see it on the news all the time with drones with cameras. So looking at that as a way to quantify whether production practices are working or not, and so we can vary in a small area and analyze different approaches very quickly and inexpensively. That's been a real limiting factor from a university perspective. That's why we generally have trials on research farms, because you have sort of economies of scale of doing research plots in a controlled environment. But with the lower cost of some of this technology, we can really also lower the cost of asking some of those questions and have much greater insights. That's often why we've had a fairly reductionist approach to agricultural research, because of, again, that cost of the cost of research.
Any other questions? We're going to open it back up to both farms, and Dwight, if you want to come back up and just kind of join us here, we'll just kind of pass the microphone and have at it for a few minutes here, and then we'll eat some rhubarb blueberry cake, so Eric won't get any. So, any questions or comments? I am picking on Eric. I'm learning how to do that. So. Perhaps we're,
yeah, I guess, the Farm Hack, one of the areas that they've been working on a lot is this remote sensing, and again, using drones, whether they've been using kites and balloons, again, to get aerial photographs, and then small helicopters and fixed wing things with cameras on so that they can get these pictures. And it's one of the forms that Farm Hack is doing, as well as some of the machinery for processing grains, oat dehulling and other things.
Yeah, there seem to be sort of 4 different major areas that in Farm Hack. One, as you mentioned, one is around grains and sort of scaling down industrial equipment. Another is on management, software and technology to link farmers more directly with their customers through software, environmental sensing, low-cost greenhouse sensors and automation, so you can get a text alert on your phone if your greenhouse is overheating or your cows are out of water, that kind of thing. And then we're also have some other technology that is generally, the production equipment is fairly expensive, but not terribly difficult to locally manufacture. So we're looking at some of the more complex cultivating equipment, publishing those plans so you can go to your local welding shop and have it welded up, so you don't have to.
It's absolutely fascinating personally. I mean, that you have everything from working teams, you're plowing with animals, to drones on your farm. That's pretty remarkable. Dwight, I have a question for you. I don't know how many times you've processed lambs for the Muslim community, but that's a special there's a,
It's kind of interesting with Muslims because if you go back to the religion, all holidays or all special occasions, they will only purchase the male sheep. They will not purchase the females. The female is, I guess, unclean compared with the male. So if you're going to have a wedding, you're going to have a circumcision, you're going to have something, it has to be a male. And as we're getting more and more ethnic people in the community, the markets seem to be changing. I know Jeff Conrad, who lives just down the road on 125 near the Lee line, I believe 2 years ago he had something like 40 some odd different ethnic groups that came in to purchase land from him. And when I was a youngster, it was basically your Greek and your Italian were the only ones really interested. But now the other communities are starting to expand, and I think it's wonderful for the food industry.
so you're teaching at the university, really, I mean, your work on the farm and you're teaching at the university, you were teaching on both settings all the time.
I use the farm frequently
Yeah.
as an extension of the class. When the university got rid of the sheep, then we used our place for animals. When we had the federal kill plant, we used to use university animals from start to finish, and then when they got rid of the Burley Demerit farm, then we would go to the outside. I frequently use my animals as part of the teaching because it just made it a lot easier for them to use my animals, and then they could be judging them in one class, they could be feeding them in another, they could be doing genetic studies in another, and then they could be doing the killing as well as the processing into wholesale and retail cuts.
Now, I don't know if we'll have the tractor parade, I talked about it, but we've been having one each year, and Dwight has one of the nicest looking farm-all tractors that you're ever going to see. What year is that tractor?
You may be referring to the Super H, which is a 1954, or is it the F12?
Visit you, you were watching this tractor now.
All right, that was the... I like the old tractors. I've got 10 letter series, starting with a 1936 F12, and then I have a Cub, some A's, Super A's, Super C's, H's, and Super H's. And just another one of my extensions in the hobby area. Keeps me busy, and we have a good time. If you enjoy tractors, Lee will be having another good parade, I think, with more tractors this year. And then next year, when we have the...
Semi-sesquicentennial.
Thank you.
I think I got that.
50th anniversary of Lee, we're supposed to have a huge number of people participating. Be a tractor parade with antique tractors to probably up to millions.
So you pick your best machine and put it up against the Unimog, and we'll... Of course, the Unimog, this thing Dorn has can cruise its highway speeds. It can go 55 or 60?
Oh, not with, I don't have the fast axles, but yeah.
Oh, okay.
You can go,
Never
you can go 50 or 200 yards an hour.
So, or in inches too. What's its slowest speed?
200 yards an hour.
200 yards an hour.
Well, that's at full throttle, though.
I've been there, personally. Okay, listen, everybody, thank you for coming out tonight.
Can I
And
interrupt you, Paul?
certainly can.
Thank you, thank you. We would like to extend a very special thank you to Cindy and Scott for all their humor and put it in this. On stage. schedule.
Thank you very much.
And we also have one for Jim. There you go. He always shows up early.
So thanks a lot, folks. We'll see you at the farmers market on the 28th, and we'll see you at the tractor parade. And go buy some things from these farms. It's not enough to just kind of come to these things. You got to help these farms make it. So, okay, thanks a lot. Enjoy.